You noticed it the third time it happened. They were sitting across from you, describing someone else, an ex, a coworker, a stranger at a party, with a level of detail that felt calibrated. You laughed it off. You said it didn't bother you, but your nervous system registered something your conversation couldn't name. For the rest of that night and most of the next week, you were quieter, smaller, trying a little harder. That wasn't accidental. That was triangulation. And the third person you were measuring yourself against didn't actually need to exist. They only needed to live in your head, briefly, long enough to change how you behaved, long enough to make you compete for someone you already had. Once you can see the geometry of this tactic, you can never get pulled back into the shape again. Here is what we are covering today: what triangulation actually is and how it differs from the clinical version of the term, the 4 distinct forms it takes as it escalates, why your brain cooperates even when part of you knows what is happening, how to recognize the move in real time, and the specific steps that let you exit the geometry without playing the game it was designed to trap you in. Triangulation is the deliberate insertion of a third person, real, exaggerated, or invented, into a two-person dynamic in order to redistribute power. Therapists originally borrowed the term from family systems theory, where it described something neutral. Two people in tension pulling in a third to absorb the pressure. Inside a controlling relationship, that neutral mechanism becomes a weapon. The point is not to share information. The point is to manufacture insecurity. The triangle does not require 3 real people. It only requires 3 positions: you in the bottom corner, looking up, them at the top, looking across, and the third, real, invented, or somewhere in between, occupying the position that makes you feel replaceable. As long as you are standing in that bottom corner, measuring yourself against a competitor whose existence they control, the geometry is doing exactly what they designed it to do. Here is the part most people miss. The third person almost never matters. Whether the ex they keep mentioning is real, semi-real, or a composite of 3 people they have texted once is irrelevant to the tactic. What matters is the silhouette that person casts over your relationship, the doubt that silhouette plants, the way you start performing for an audience of 1 while benchmarking yourself against someone you have never actually met. When a healthy partner mentions other people, it sounds like a Tuesday. When a triangulating partner mentions other people, there is a beat afterward where they watch your face. That beat is the tell. They are not sharing information about their life. They are issuing an instruction about your position, your security, the scarcity of their attention, and reading your face to confirm the instruction landed. The content of the conversation was never the point. The deepest function of triangulation is this: it takes something that should be stable and shared, a relationship, a bond, a commitment, and reframes it as a contest. The moment you accept the contest, you have already lost it, because the prize is them, and when they are the prize, they get to define the rules of winning. They control what counts as effort. They control what counts as failure. The triangle hands them total authority over a game you never agreed to play. The first form is the softest version. They mention, in passing, that someone finds them interesting. A colleague who laughed too long at their joke, a waiter who wrote a number on the receipt, a mutual friend who said something flattering. They never act on it. They never have to. The point is only to remind you that the door is open and that other people are walking past it and noticing them. You will feel a small, hot pulse of insecurity. You will dismiss it, and the next time they want something, patience, forgiveness, a concession, you will give it just a little faster, because the triangle has already told your body that their attention is not guaranteed. Attention perceived as scarce becomes attention you work harder to secure. The manipulation does not require escalation. That single pulse is enough to change your behavior for weeks. The second form uses the third person as a measuring stick. They start referencing how an ex used to handle things, how their last partner was more patient, how a friend's wife never makes a big deal out of things. They are not insulting you directly. That would be too clean, too easy to push back on. They are describing someone else in glowing terms and trusting your brain to do the math. Your brain always does the math. You stop asking for things you used to ask for. You laugh at jokes you do not find funny. You become a more accommodating version of yourself while telling yourself you're just being mature. You are not being mature. You are being optimized by someone quietly running an A/B test on your self-esteem. The comparison was never about the other person. It was a change request issued with plausible deniability. You received it without knowing you had. The third form stops pretending. They flirt openly. They text someone in front of you. They mention a friend they are meeting alone and will not quite explain. When you ask, they accuse you of being controlling, insecure, paranoid. The defensive reaction is the giveaway. The sharper it is, the more deliberate the original move was. The goal is not to actually leave you for the third person. The goal is to keep you destabilized. A destabilized partner is a compliant one. A destabilized partner apologizes faster, settles for less, is easier to gaslight, asks fewer questions, makes fewer demands. Your jealousy is not a side effect of this tactic. Your jealousy is the product. They do not want you comfortable. They want you slightly off balance, slightly unsure, slightly grateful when their full attention turns back in your direction. That gratitude is the dynamic they are engineering. Jealousy is its fuel, and they are the ones filling the tank. The fourth form escapes the romantic frame entirely. They start telling other people in your life things about you, quietly, sympathetically, in ways designed to recruit those people to their side. By the time you realize anything is happening, your sister is treating you differently. Your best friend is more guarded. The narrative about who you are has been rewritten in rooms you were never in. This is triangulation as social warfare. It is the hardest form to fight. The reason alliance triangulation is so effective is the same reason the smear campaign is effective. First mover advantage. The people they reached first already have a frame through which they process everything you say afterward. Your clarity sounds like defensiveness. Your hurt confirms what they were told. By the time you enter the conversation, the jury is already seated, and in this court, there is no straightforward mechanism for introducing new evidence. If triangulation is so obvious in retrospect, why does it land so reliably in the moment? Because your brain did not evolve to evaluate manipulators, it evolved to track status. Pair bonding humans had to monitor, constantly, whether their partner might leave for someone with better resources, better standing, better prospects. The mechanism that handles this is fast, automatic, and almost impossible to override consciously. It is older than language and far faster than thought. A skilled manipulator weaponizes that mechanism. They do not need to convince you that someone is replacing you. They only need to suggest it. Your ancient primate-level threat detection does the rest. It floods you with cortisol. It narrows your focus. It makes their approval suddenly feel scarce and therefore precious. And humans compete hardest for resources they believe are scarce. The triangle manufactures scarcity. The biology follows automatically. The more you love someone, the more triangulation works. People who do not care about the relationship are functionally immune. People who would choose this person every day, who are genuinely committed, genuinely invested, are wide open. The tactic exploits the very thing that made you a good partner. The wound it leaves is not proof of weakness, it is proof of commitment. They weaponize the best part of what you brought to the relationship. Once you know what to look for, the move has a signature. It is not the mention of the third person. It is the beat of silence afterward, the slight shift in eye contact, the way they hold just a fraction too still while they wait to see what the mention did to you. That watching is the tell. Healthy partners mention other people and move on. A triangulating partner mentions other people and then observes. They are monitoring the outcome of their input. Watch for unfavorable comparisons disguised as compliments to other people. She is so easygoing. He is so confident. I love that they never make a big deal out of things. These statements are never actually about the third person. They are notes left on your nightstand about who you are supposed to become. Each one is a specification, and the more you accommodate it, the more specifications arrive. There is no version of this where you eventually become enough. The cleanest real-time diagnostic is this. In a healthy relationship, hearing about your partner's life makes you feel more connected to them. In a triangulating relationship, hearing about your partner's life makes you feel like you're losing them. Same input, opposite output. That gap is not your insecurity. It is the manipulation operating exactly as designed. Trust the output. The output is data, and data does not lie. You do not fight triangulation by competing harder. The triangle was designed to make competing the only available move. Every minute you spend trying to outshine the third person is a minute you are standing in the position they assigned you. You step out by refusing the geometry, not by confrontation, not by performance, and not by disappearing, by simply declining to accept the contest as the frame for your relationship. The first move is internal. When you feel the comparison forming, when the pulse hits and your nervous system starts calibrating, you name it. This is triangulation. I am not in a competition, not out loud, just as a clean, internal fact. You let the thought pass without engaging it. This is genuinely difficult. It feels like surrender. It is not surrender. It is the only available move that stops feeding the dynamic the energy it needs to function. The second move is external. When they mention the ex, the coworker, the flirty stranger, you do not escalate, you do not perform jealousy, and you do not perform exaggerated indifference. You acknowledge it neutrally and move on. A flat effect starves this tactic. Manipulators use triangulation because it generates a reaction. No reaction, no fuel. You are not suppressing your feelings. You are declining to perform them for someone using them as raw material. The third move is to name the pattern out loud, calmly, in the moment, without accusation. I notice you mention her a lot. I notice you compare me to him. I notice these conversations consistently leave me feeling worse than when they started. Naming the pattern removes its plausible deniability. The third person is no longer incidental. The geometry is now visible to both of you. And manipulators hate having their geometry visible because the tactic only works in the dark. Watch what they do after you name it. Some people who did not fully understand what they were doing, will stop. They will hear themselves reflected back and something will shift. But most people running this deliberately will escalate. The naming threatens their authority. The thing they hate more than being seen is being seen and not respected for it. Their response to being named is the most honest information you will ever get from them. Treat it as data, not drama. The fourth move, if it comes to it, is exit. Not as punishment, as surgery. If someone has constructed an entire relationship around a triangle they imposed on you, if every moment of closeness exists inside a frame of competition and scarcity, then dismantling the triangle dismantles the relationship. There is no version of them that exists outside this geometry, because the geometry is how they relate to you. Leaving is not abandoning love. It is refusing to keep paying rent on a position you never agreed to occupy. After you have named it, the third person stops feeling like a competitor. They become something colder and more useful, a prop, a silhouette that someone deployed deliberately for a specific purpose. That reframe changes everything. You stop measuring yourself against them. You start seeing the function they were serving. The geometry needs you to believe in the contest. Your clarity is the thing it cannot survive. People who exit a triangulating relationship often describe a strange quiet on the other side. Not peace exactly. More like the absence of a low-level noise they had gotten so used to they had stopped hearing it. That noise was the contest. That hum was the constant calibration, the monitoring, the hoping, the adjusting. The quiet is not emptiness. It is what space feels like before you fill it with something that was actually your choice. You were not insecure. You were not paranoid. You were not reading too much into it. You were responding accurately to a setup designed to make you respond exactly that way. The fact that it worked does not say anything about your worth. It says something about how precisely they understood your capacity to care. They used the best of you against you, but you have the play now, and the play only works once, the second time you see it coming. Next time someone slides a third person into a conversation, you will feel the small pulse, notice the beat where they watch your face, and know, with a kind of cold, useful clarity, that you are not in a contest. You are in a triangle, and you do not have to stand in it anymore. If this episode named something you have been sitting with, share it with someone who needs the language. Subscribe to Deception Circuit. Understanding these systems is not just survival. It is the thing that makes you impossible to run this play on again.